Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Table 21. I'm super excited to have you here with me today. I am mostly super excited about my guest today, Chef Norm Aitken. Not only a staple in the Ottawa region in the restaurant industry for the last, I guess he'll tell us, but at least 15, 20 years. I had the pleasure of working with Norm for 2 years, around 2012 in those years, pretty much my last restaurant gig before I went full on with consulting and all my other projects. And somebody that I really appreciate professionally, but also personally. Somebody that wasn't just my boss and my chef, but that became a friend. We have a chance to work closely together now through piecemeal and through other stuff. So even though there's a few years where we didn't see each other, now we talk almost every day, which is pretty cool. So I'm excited to have him come and tell us about his story, his background. One of the things that I want to talk with him today about is I was always impressed from the first day I worked with him about his ability to be consistent in putting amazing stuff out of the kitchen, which I'd rarely seen that level of consistency. And I'm kind of curious to know if he can share some nuggets of wisdom. Enough about me chatting. Let me bring Norm in. Chef Norm.
Hey.
How are you?
That was great, bud. That was awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Really, really, really proud to have you come on today.
This is a really fun way to spend a Monday afternoon, actually. It's a really good intro into the week.
Yeah, and I know you're not busy, right? So you have plenty of time to do shit like that with me, right?
I'll carve it out for you anytime, bud. Anytime.
Exactly. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. A lot of good stuff that I want to talk to you about. I want to know more about you, because I think for us to enjoy these conversations with the people, I love when I see these things online to know about the background. I think once you buy a person, you buy into their vision, their values, and what they do, which I've totally done, and definitely drank the Norm Kool-Aid, Chef Norm Kool-Aid years ago, and I'm a big fan, and I learned a lot. I came into your restaurant, Juniper, in 2011, 2012. Yeah. It was probably my 30th something job in restaurants, and still, it was my last one before I moved into other things. Yet I learned so much in that 2-year period where I worked with you guys, and I learned a lot of stuff that I sometimes that's probably my mid-30s or close to that at that point, or close to that anyways. Luckily, there was always Kevin there that was older to make us feel young. But shout out to Kevin if he watches this. But I always try to keep an open mind and got there and learned a lot from Paul, from you, from Pete, from all, from the entire team. So I have very, very strong feelings and memories about that. I'm sure you do as well, because you were there longer and you'll tell us about that. But that's why I'm excited to have you on, because when you keep an open, it showed me that when you keep an open mind in life, there's always something to learn, especially in our business. And even at that point, I was at the end of my, maybe serving or floor career. There was still quite a lot to learn, and I got some amazing lessons from you guys. So I'll stop kissing your ass, and I'm curious to know where, what's the Norm story? I met you in Ottawa, but you're from PEI. I know it's a very long and we go way back, but tell us the story. How do we get to hear from
there to here story? Okay, so yeah, originally from Prince Edward Island, the small little red island on the East Coast, which is now known as the Chef's Paradise Island for ingredients. So I grew up on a potato farm.
Okay.
So I knew potatoes very well. And so it was all about farming. It was all about community. So there was a small inn that popped up in my neighborhood, or my village, I guess is what you'd call it. And it catered to people visiting the island. It was way back in like late 80s, I think is when it opened, like 88. So lo and behold, I become a 13-year-old looking for a summer job. So I started washing dishes for Chef Michael Smith. So Chef Michael Smith back in the day, early 20s, long ponytail and a zebra-colored YJ Jeep coming in from New York. So he was a New Yorker chef, kind of high profile, doing some cutting edge plating, feeding off of the ingredients, that sort of thing. So in that kitchen, it was just right from the get-go, it was like, this is a tomato. And he used to always say, speak to your tomato. It has much to tell you. And it was like, wow, okay, we're taking ingredients and like spinning them in a way that's like lightening them and like putting them on the forefront and showcasing a tomato. I found this to be I'm like, shit, I just knew a tomato. You cut it up and you throw a little salt on it maybe and you eat it. But no, Mike was doing something that was completely out of left field.
And here's Mike, just to show you at the inn where he still is today.
Yeah.
And just for those who might have seen him on, I forget the name of the show, but he had a very popular show on Food Network where he was cooking at home, and I think it's Chef at Home. Was that the name of the show?
Yeah.
So just for those of you who might have seen the face, putting a face on the name. So that was your mentor, and that's where you started.
That's where I started, and I was probably 5 foot. That's it. And this guy was like 6'6" or 6'8", and he was like a tower. He really embraced quality of an ingredient. He was really one that just wanted to take it to a whole nother level. So I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. I started cooking on a line. I ended up doing that from when I was 13 until I was about 18. I spent 9 years with him at the inn, season after season. We'd work from May until October, so it was like 80-hour weeks. There was no rest for the wicked. It was, work hard, play hard. Yeah. And we did a lot of cool stuff, met a lot of cool people there, a lot of cooks from the culinary schools. So I was
a gorgeous spot, right?
It's a gorgeous spot. It is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like home to me. So he's like, listen, you're pretty good at cooking. Why don't you start cooking on the line? So I was like, okay, let's give this a shoot.
And by the way, for those of you who wonder why we were 2 minutes late, as we were setting this up,
we needed coffee.
Norm asked me if there was a coffee break. I said, we're taking a coffee break before we start. So that's why we got coffees going.
We got coffees. It's Monday afternoon.
Yeah, it's better. GNTs would be good, but it's a little early in the week.
A little early. That's a slippery slope for me.
Yep.
So yeah, I started cooking with him, and then I don't know. He's like, you got a knack for this. You're good. So lo and behold, here we are. I don't know, 25 years later. I went to culinary school just to finish off my theory. I had the practical. I knew how to scramble an egg or cook a steak, but I really didn't have the fundamentals or the theory behind that. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to school and take this to a whole nother, area.
Yep.
So stayed on PEI until 2000, until I was done graduating school. Wrote the Red Seal as soon as I exited school, because I already did my apprenticeship essentially with Mike for 9 years. And then I'm like, okay, where am I going? I'm not going to stay here. I'd like to see something bigger.
Yeah.
I ended up cooking with a couple of guys from Ottawa, and he's like, you really got to check the city out. Loads of green space, loads of farms. It's not Toronto. And I was like, okay, I'm not into Toronto. It's just too busy for me. I love you all in Toronto, but coming from Prince Edward Island, that's a hell of a culture shock. So anyway, lo and behold, I landed in Ottawa.
I'm interested in stopping you there for a sec. That's a fun thing. Like, I would have been curious, but you say lots of farms, lots of stuff. You're from PEI. On the way to Ottawa, you hit Montreal, which is quite famous to be a big restaurant town. I know you're friends with a lot of famous chefs here, but Michael's point was farms, cool scene in Ottawa. Why like not necessarily Montreal? And that's fine, but I'm just curious why was that something for him?
I spent a lot of time in Montreal on my way here. I know quite a few people there, but it was more of the green space, the culture of Ottawa. I think it had a lot to do with government town. You're not going to be out of a job in a government town. I think that brought some security with it. And then I'm like looking at a map. I'm smack dab in the middle between Montreal and Toronto. I'm like, okay, so maybe this is the best of both worlds, maybe. And it's proven to be, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. So yeah, here in Ottawa, ended up working for this restaurant called Juniper. They were doing new stuff, different flavors, kind of pulling on the ethnic diversity of Canadians. Being in the capital, that was a big draw to the restaurant. I was with them for a couple of years, and then I got an opportunity to head for Europe and do a year stint in the west coast of Ireland, running a spa. No cell phone, no car, walk to work 40 minutes next to a raging river. Products coming out of everywhere, fresh lamb, like it was crazy, fresh seafood. It reminded me a lot of home. And that was one hell of an experience. So worked there for a year, did a lot of traveling, spent a month in Italy, went to France several times, went to Spain a few times, did a lot of traveling while we were there, came home with absolutely no money in the pockets. Came home to an opportunity to essentially take over Juniper as an owner. One of the partners wanted out, and I was like, okay, well, here's an opportunity. So I took that restaurant over, moved it to a new location, and then was there for 13 years. I owned that place for 13 years. A lot of good memories, man. We had a lot of good times.
I have a ton of good memories there, and I was only around for 2-3 years, so I can only imagine.
And you were there at the height of it too. I think you were there when the team was super tight. And you know, when you talked about what we were doing at Juniper, we were kind of cutting edge, and we're teaching. We were really involved with culinary schools. We were extremely involved with the farmers coming to the back door every night of the week. We're designing menus off the back of their truck in the parking lot. You know what? It had everything to do with the team. You know what? When people are like, yeah, you were awesome. And I'm like, no, I wasn't. We were. And you know what? That was Juniper in a nutshell, was the team. And we all contributed. We all were listened to. We all had input. We all had our own direction, but we all seemed to put it together on the plate. Like it was perfect.
Yep.
It was absolutely perfect every time.
Yep.
And I think, you know what? When you talk about consistency, you want to create consistency, get buy-in, get your cooks involved, teach them at the same time. And I always told them, I'm like, I need to walk away here every day learning something from you.
Yep.
And that could be the dishwasher on how we organize this racks. I'm serious. We learn something every day. That's what I love about this business. I still do. Every day I learn something from someone.
Yeah, that's the cool thing too. And there was a lot of innovation there that was sometimes simple at Juniper. Sometimes it was like, I mean, you tried some funky stuff. I remember, and I'm trying to find a picture as you're talking of the foam stuff where you were doing like flavored smoke or something. Remember? It wasn't even smoke. It was
a vapor. Yeah,
it was like it was flavored vapor that we started integrating in dishes, and they put you on TV with. I mean, you were already on TV in many places in Ottawa, but like a lot of people wanted to know about this. But that was one of the things. But I love that it's so true. Like a lot of people say stuff like what you've been saying about, you know, farmers in the back building and you know, having the team having their say. But at Juniper, it was real. There was always a bunch of kids from culinary school in the back. You had a core team of people that were there, from, you know, Jason to Lynn to your partner Pete to Paul, you know, that was managing the front of house and all that. But there was definitely, like, I've rarely felt such, and you know, restaurants in general, we tend to be great teams and work well together. But there was a definite, you know, Sandro. I feel like now I'm thinking, I'm forgetting people, and they're gonna, you know, hate me. But there were so many people that were in the integral part of that team.
Intricate, intricate part of the team.
I remember the Caprin guy, Christophe from the Caprin coming in with mushrooms, and you would be like, guys, over here, what are we doing with this tonight?
Yeah.
And I remember you were the first chef I'd seen take a blank sheet of paper and basically draw out a plate before you even tried it with them, saying we need a component like this, we need, you know, a crunch of this, of that, a starch, of, you know, a protein, and then write it out and say, okay, let's go and build. Like, I'd never seen somebody work that way. And I, like you said, getting buy-in from the team, it's insane how everybody was bought in at that restaurant. And if they weren't lasting.
Nope.
Right?
Nope.
Even on service side, like if they couldn't keep up with the team, you were like getting kicked out of the boat. Like you had to get out of there, right?
That's one thing about Juniper that I love too. We all hired and we all fired. It was you either played with us and you got along with the team and you adopted into our family, or you just didn't last.
Yeah.
You just didn't last.
And I remember go ahead.
There was a lot that came in from my service team. I listened to you guys day in and day out. What are the guests saying? What's the input? You guys tasted all the food we ever put out of that kitchen. You knew exactly what you were serving and how it was put together. That was key.
Yeah.
That was key to that success.
And you guys were open to it. And sometimes it's not easy to talk to a kitchen. And I remember one time you and I think the only time we ever butted heads about food or about something. And at one point I told you, I said, dude, like, I'm not trying to be a dick. This tastes like shit. And you're like, yeah, okay, you're right. Because you were trying something new and you had tried it and you had over-tried it and you tried it again and you were like, wait, you go, and eventually you were like, yeah, you're right. Because you put so much time into it, you were getting irritated, which I totally understand. And
no, that's part of chef's pride.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
Pride. And sometimes you need to let go of that.
Yeah, but you had that ability, which a lot of chefs don't. A lot of chefs would have been shut that L up and go back in the dining room. I don't want to see your face. But at one point, you were like, yeah, you're right. Like, this is a dead horse. I can keep beating it. This is not going to work. This is not going to give us the results we want. And I remember telling him, like, dude, I don't want to be a dick. I know you wouldn't want to serve this to the guests, right? But there was
it's like, the chef, I'm not a dick. I'm not trying to be a dick.
I just like
asshole.
It's fucking like Chewy. Sorry, I said we were going to wind up swearing on this. So advisory: get your children out of the room. But yeah, there was definitely, and there was bought in the dining room, and there was bought in the kitchen. Right, everybody like I mean, a lot of restaurants have great teams that work well together, but there was something pretty magical about that place. There was and I always thought Paul did something really cool, and I'll get Paul on the show, and you work with Paul today, and Paul was, the kind of dining room manager, restaurant manager for Juniper, taking care of whatever was not kitchen. But Paul had this thing when you went into work where you would do a quiz, like a lot of places do, just the knowledge to make sure, see where you're at. And then you would come into work a tryout shift, and he would ask the person that shadowed that person how it went.
Yep.
I did that with Kevin, and went really well, and we actually got completely swamped that night, and I wound up, I was supposed to shadow him, wound up helping him service tables because it was a very busy Wednesday night. But I remember doing a couple of those where I was shadowing, people were shadowing me or following me, and I'd tell Paul would be like, do you want him on the team? What do you think? Yes. And I said, I don't know if this is working because everybody makes it on the team. Until I got one guy one day that I went to Paul and I said, you know what? That it's not going to work for these reasons. Nice kid, but it's not going to work. Right. And that's when I realized it was more because the process was good, and before that, from the interview to everybody meeting him, like if somebody came in from the back or the front, they would go and meet the kitchen team or the front of house team, and then to the quiz, to that shadow. Like that shadow shift was basically just a final stamp because the work had been done before.
Yep.
So that's why most people didn't make it that far, and in that case, that night, that person didn't make it. But I was like, trust the process is what I told myself at that time, right? Because if it builds a team like this, there are things that are going to work along the line to make sure that you get the right people on board that are going to buy in and believe in what we do.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it went a long way, and I think it defined. Paul and I have been working together now for I think almost 15 years.
Yep.
And it's like, it's tried, tested, and true. Like, it is what it is now. This is just how we do it.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's written a book about it yet, but
well, a good documentary to be done there or something anyway. For sure.
Something there. I think there was something there.
Maybe we'll have to start piecemeal production and start getting some nice movies.
There you go.
Let's get a deal with Netflix or something.
Yeah. You could easily. Yep.
Yeah. So the other thing too that was really, and I want to hear you on that as a chef. You're one of the best chefs I've ever worked with. But I said it, to me, what impressed me, like, I've worked with a lot of great chefs that had no consistency. And I just want to go back to that because I think the difference between restaurants who succeed long-term to those who don't is the consistency of the experience, from the service to the food to the atmosphere to everything that goes around that the culture of a restaurant. And the first night I worked with you guys was a wedding for 120 people or something like that. You guys did a lot of events. You had a great space, great. So you were very attractive to a lot of these events. I don't know how many weddings I've done with you guys or events.
Yeah.
But out of 120 guests, there was 45 or 52 salmons that came out pink, perfectly cooked. It was not sous vide. And I was like, I've never seen anything like that. Out of 50, I'm expecting, I don't know, 5, maybe 10% of them to come back because they're a little overcooked or, without even the guessing, I want this to be, more on the medium side or a little bit more cooked. But you guys put out, close to 50 perfectly cooked salmons, and then the same thing with the meats.
Yeah.
There was 45 beefs, and they were all perfect. And I was like, I've never seen the way you plated it, right? You designed the plate to be plated a certain way. And when it went out, we knew what it looked like. We knew what it was supposed to look like, even as servers, right?
Yeah.
If somebody else was building it, something's missing here because there was that consistency. But I was always impressed with how you could get 50 salmons to be perfectly cooked. And I remember you telling me, I don't even remember what the process was, but I remember you told me one night, like, it was super simple for you. Like, I do this, I do this, I do that. Therefore, I can't, I can't fail. But I was impressed by that level of perfection, pretty much. And I'm curious to know, is that something that's from your personality? Is that something that you've learned before? Like, how did you manage to pull that off every night?
You know what? I think so much of cooking is about senses. I think, when I first started cooking with Mike, he used to make me turn my back to the stove. And he's like, cook with your ears. Can you hear what's going on in that pan?
Yeah.
And there was years of going into that going, okay, I know when that butter turns brown. I know when that pan goes silent that those scallops are done. They're toast. You know what I mean? It was consistency. It's, as I said, like, most of it has to do with touch, smell, hearing, you name it. It's about all the senses.
Yeah.
So, when I do salmons, how did I do that? I would have crisped the skin.
Yeah.
I would have basted it, put it on a sheet pan probably, right?
Yeah. There's something with a sheet pan where it was in the oven for a certain amount of time and you knew how they were going to come out. And
and it was like a quick flash, small pans,
and
then go to the plate. That's it. And, like, I needed you guys to pick up quick or I was done for, right?
Again, because it was going to cook underneath the heater, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, what you're telling me now is, I think, exactly what you told me back then, like probably 8 years ago. But yeah.
Don't leave it underneath the heat lamp. It's still cooking.
And another thing too that really struck me and about Juniper was Paul's culture in the front of house, which I've rarely seen. Right. You could tell servers and bartenders you need to greet the door whenever somebody comes in. As soon as they're busy doing something else, it's not my job anymore, right?
Right.
And at Juniper, it's the only place in the world I've ever seen this. And I've told that story in every training I've given in the last 10 years, every consultation I've done. But it was Pavlov's dog, right? Like the bell, like literally that door would open and you could have 3 servers or 2 servers and a bartender talking, and everybody would stop what they're doing, or they could be, preparing coffee or something. Everybody would walk to the door to greet the guests. Yep. Guests would get up. Everybody would get up to go and get their coat. Like, I'd never seen a team that trained to be focused, to be guest focused, to be guest oriented, and everybody was doing it naturally. It was like you could be mid conversation, you would stop what you're doing, and then go to, like, I've never seen that because, Paul is pretty by the book and pretty strict, and in the kitchen you guys tend to be as well. But it was so well adopted. Like you said, there was buy-in from the team because people were proud of what we were doing there, like from the kind of guests we were serving. And you said it's a government town, right? So I mean, I've served the ambassador to Mexico, and I served so and so, and the journalist, and the mayor, and this person on Dragon's Den, and like we had a lot of people and a lot of great guests, like regulars that were coming, and that was a testament to what you guys had built for 10, 15 years before. But always been impressed by the level of like you said, of buy-in. And I think when people buy your culture, buy your values, then it makes the whole rest of the work so much easier, right?
That will equal success. I'm telling you. And it was all culture. It was, as I told Paul right off the bat, I'm like, dude, this is my living room. I'm here more than I'm at home. So when guests are in my living room, how do you treat them? They're your guests. I don't have customers. Customers go to the corner store or the gas station. Clients have lawyers. We have guests. We have people that want to come to our living room. We have guests that want to come and see us. As much as having an experience with food and beverage and dining, so many of our guests came for us.
Yeah. I mean, you had a regular guest that came in through the back door every night, that came to eat at the restaurant 5 days a week, 6 days a week.
You know what? I met him the first night I was in Ottawa.
Really?
And he came into the old Juniper when I was working there.
Yeah.
And he had a free pass. It didn't matter if the front door was locked or not. It did not matter. He had a seat.
Yeah.
He would just show up. And after a while, I was like, okay, you're here 6 nights a week. You don't have a family. You're completely career. You are a scientist at the Heart Institute. And I'm like, I get you. He was eccentric, entertaining conversations. And I'm like, you are a friend. You're not a guest. You're a family member. And he ended up being a family member. He never got a menu. We just worked for him. We knew he didn't like beets, but he loved raw shallots, right? We knew everything about it.
You knew everything about a lot of people too.
Yep.
Right? We used some technology for it. You like there were so many things that I came out of Juniper with that you guys did well. I mean, here's another one that I talk a lot of people about. A lot of times people have these, comment cards. Your comment card was also, I guess your guys were giving like a dinner a month for 2 people or whatever. If people fill their information in their email, and we'll throw you on a newsletter, and we send a couple a year.
Yeah.
And I don't even know the numbers, but I did the calculations, and I mean, you had 5,000-10,000 people on that list. And when it was time to do a promo in January and say, hey, we got a special, at dead time, get a special table d'hôte or whatever. Yep. Well, you send that to 5,000-7,000 people, there's a good chance you're going to be pretty busy for January, right? And that worked for you guys, right? It was not just give us your comments. That was great. We got that. But it was also an exchange of information saying, hey, and I told people, I never thought of that. I'm like, that's brilliant, right? The way you guys did that. And I remember you guys doing promotions where people had accepted. They were like, yeah, we want to hear about Juniper. And Juniper's not going to write to you every day and bug you and send you a bunch of emails, but we'll send a couple of important ones during the year about stuff that you'll be interested in. And I thought that was pretty amazing.
We didn't have a marketing department. We were doing this all on the whim, right? So, as far as your own inbox, I don't like litter, right? So these companies that send out, a newsletter once a day or once a week, I was like, holy shit, that's annoying. Unsubscribe, thank you. And I wanted to be, that one that floats through, and when you see it, you're like, oh shit, okay, what's going on there?
Yeah.
That's what I wanted. I didn't want to be, in your face begging. I just want to keep you informed. That was pretty much, that was our thought behind it. I just didn't want to overdo it, which some places do. People become annoyed with it these days. It's like, enough. So.
But I always saw it even with my consulting clients. I thought that was such a brilliant idea. I said, listen, even if you don't send anything all year, save it for January when it's dead. Yeah. And then do a special table d'hôte or whatever. Do a promo and then say, hey, listen, we know we're right after the holidays. We put something together. If you guys want to come out one time this month, blah, 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 send that to your reservation system. And out of 5,000 people, if you book 300, that's going to make you January, pay rent and make money. That's these people have come to you, they know you, and you're clear about, I'm not going to be spamming you, but I want to, send you some cool stuff. I just find a lot of times people are there, and the execution of that, again, is how it's done, right? The execution of how you present it to the guest and to ask them to fill it out. And we'd love to have your comments and to make sure that if you say you're going to give, a free meal every month, you do it. But I just figured a lot of people, I know some people do that well, but a lot of people don't. And the guests are there and they could gather the information and they could have a way to communicate with them, and they don't, which is just a wasted opportunity, right?
That whole, when you said comment, when we did comment cards, that was huge for us as a team because we all read them. At the end of the night, the comment cards would hit the line. We'd all read them. Came with that was accountability, because we knew who was making the tartare that night. And it was like the tartare was crap. And it's like my tartare was never crap. But
oh, not you, Chef.
We knew exactly what was going on with every table. We knew what they were going to leave on the comment. And the thing was, we would follow up with them the next day and say, you know what, we screwed up. We missed your ticket, the server didn't punch it in or didn't fire it because they were busy, whatever it was. But it was that communication back to the guest, and half the battle was admitting that we screwed up. No big deal. we just win them back. Done deal. But those comment cards were extremely important to the team and to the business.
And they were validation for the team as well, right? When you mess up, fine, let's own it and let's learn.
Yep.
But when you read something about your service or something about the quality of the food or how amazing the dessert was or this or that, like, it's so empowering for the entire team to see that.
Yep.
And it's such an easy thing to do, right? If it's wrong, we fix it. If it's great, then we put it in the tank, and that's one of the reasons we do it, right?
We posted those comment cards, good or bad. It was kind of like, we're doing this together. This isn't a front of house and back of house. This wasn't you guys screwed up. It was we screwed up. And that's how we ran it. We were just one unit. There was no line in the sand between front of house and back of the house. I never wanted that in my restaurant. We work as a team. One dream. Move forward.
Yeah, and the other thing, I like this to be a little educational at the same time, and I think you're sharing some really great nuggets. Another thing that I discovered as I was working with you guys, and I remember having conversations with Paul, and in the way we shared it with the rest of the service team, is that the way it was presented. Same thing with the dessert menus, and these are all things that I learned or perfected working with you guys. But if I drop the menu, the dessert menu, if I drop that comment card with the bill and a pen, maybe 1 out of 30 people would fill it.
Right.
But what I would do, because you guys also made it a contest of whoever picks up the most comments gets the beer. So since I like free beer, I never lost a contest. So but I go to the table and say, here's the bill. Thank you so much for coming and see us tonight. There's a comment card in here. If you'd love to give us your comments for us or the kitchen team, they'd love to have it in the back. If you want to share your information through your email, we'll put you on our newsletter. We send for a year. Really nothing too disturbing, and they give a free meal once a month out of everybody that's filled that out. Great value for our team, and also for you a chance to learn a little bit more about what we do. If you want to, so when I started doing that and introducing the comment card, and now it's longer. I probably did it shorter than that, but I haven't done it in 8 years. But I wind up, instead of having 2 a night, I'd have 10, 12 a night.
Oh,
right? I wind up having a lot more, and I'd be like, okay, cool, here you go, guys. Like, here's some feedback plus more people to throw on on our mailing list.
Yep.
And people didn't feel like the way I presented. The same thing with the dessert menu. If you say our desserts are in here, you'll sell 1 out of 10 tables. But when you open it and you say, here's the type of desserts we have, and I remember the sticky toffee pudding, which I was still dreaming about. And when that was on the menu, for example, I would say, if you guys have never had this, sticky toffee pudding is the best dessert I've ever had in my life. If you guys are too full, like throw 2 spoons on the table and then do my spiel. But whenever I introduced the menu and put a point a finger at an item, I did the same thing with the regular menu. I wound up selling, and then we started having the whole team doing that, and dessert sales started going up.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
The whole pastry team there, a whole team in the back. Let's make sure that we move that stuff and that people want to try it. But anyways, my point here was, when you introduce these things, if you just hope that people will fill it up, or people will read it, or people will taste it, when you put a feature or a bit of time in explaining something, it goes a lot, a lot further. So,
yep, big time.
One thing that I missed with you guys, I wish I would have been there, but I want you to tell us a bit more about how you guys did that, what that project was dueling chefs. When I came in right at the tail end of the last year you did that. You guys organized for 2-3 years these dueling chefs. I think it was for charity. I'm just curious because it was a really cool concept, and I wish I had lived it with you guys. But what was that all about?
Okay, so that was a December, us looking down the barrel of the gun to January. We all know what January is in the business, and we were like, okay, what are we gonna do? Like, we need to do something that's out there, like something that's. But at the same time, we're a community restaurant, so we need to get the community to back us with this. We need the involvement. So plain and simple, throw it back to charity. January, all charities need help. It's the start of a new year. It was like, okay, so what are we gonna do? Let's pitch restaurants, because everybody's slow, so let's all hang out. We never have time to hang out with our fellow chefs in the city. And there's one thing about Ottawa chefs, very tight. We were all very tight. So it was, okay, well, let's just invite another restaurant in to do a friendly competition. So now we need someone to filter that and make sure it's fair. So that's when we had Ron E take it on, as far as picking the ingredients and coordinating with the chefs. he loved it because that puts him in contact with all the chefs. And we just
to make it for people that are not necessarily from Ottawa, Ron Eid is the kind of restaurant columnist for the Citizen, right?
Yeah, he was the food editor for the Ottawa Citizen back in the day.
So he was everybody knew him, and it made sense to have him as a kind of impartial outsider.
Yeah. So 2 years of that, and it was I think we did 9 restaurants every year. I think did we do it once a week? We did. For the first year, we did it once every week for January and February, and then the second year we split it up because it was too much to do every week, so we did it every 2 weeks. That was so much fun. That created so much creativity in the team, front and back of the house. Like, it was epic. That thing was epic.
Yeah.
We did what, 140,000 for charities, and they were all like local charities. I didn't want to go big. I'm like, you know, from Women's Shelter to Quick Start, which was for autism. Like, they were all super local, and we had full support. So we had judges in, usually from media or from the charities. They'd come on as a judge, and we had a secret judge in the audience. Who was doing that? Louis Charest when he was at the Rideau Club, or he was at Rideau Hall. He was at Rideau Hall. That was a load of fun, man. I would love to do that again.
That was fun. So just explain the concept to us. Pretty much 2 chefs from 2 restaurants. You guys basically, I guess, people that came in, they bought a ticket. Was that how it worked?
Ticket sales. So it was like, then we could book the seat, and it was like I think we sold it for like $70 a head, which is a steal now.
You had two apps. Like both restaurants would do each an app, each a main, each a dessert. Was that
3 courses. It was an app, main, dessert. Oh, and an hors d'oeuvre. So you had to do a canapé or a amuse-bouche to start, and then it was an app, main, dessert. Our kitchen could be divided into 2 different sections, coming out on one line. So we coordinate it and say, okay, we're plating in 5 minutes. So both teams had to plate 70 plates. We would sell doing 70 people.
Did they plate in the pastry? Because you had like the line in the back and then pastry in the back. Is that how you guys split it?
Pastry, yeah. And then and we always flipped a coin for who got what side of the kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah, we just rocked it out. We did some really good food. Like, everybody did, not just us, but like there was some creative food coming out of there. Yeah, it was good times.
Any fun stories of either for you guys or for the opponent or the other restaurant of, I don't know, fiascos or shit going sideways where you had to help each other out? I think I remember a story of something not happening where you guys or somebody helped somebody out. Or am I wrong?
There was one. It was against Wellington Gastropub, Chris DeRoche, and it was lamb for main course. And I had a stock pot in the parking lot with charcoal. And I'm like, I'm going to do this lamb over charcoal in the parking lot in an open fire, right? And I did that. I took it off. I took a temp. I'm like, okay, we're good. And I put it on a counter, and I sunk it in butter. The butter ended up getting too hot from the lamb, and I almost overcooked it. There was a few pieces that were done. I was like, oh, I screwed that one up. There was a few accidents where food hit the floor. Who did that? It was another restaurant. I think it was Castlegarth from White Lake or something. And I think he dropped something, and then we had enough, so we gave ours to him. We just shared. We made the course between the 2 kitchens.
Yeah, I remember a story about where somebody had an issue, and I guess you guys wound up helping each other out to make sure that food came out and the guests still had the experience and all that. So
what's another one? Oh, asparagus. And it was against Farb's Kitchen. He was out in Beechwood area, and we had asparagus as one of the main ingredients. And I refused. I like put up a stink. I'm like, I am not doing a dessert with asparagus. And I was very adamant, ego driven, no way, I'm not doing it. I lost that competition because he made an asparagus ice cream that was actually extremely good. And I was so pissed at myself, and I felt like I let the whole team down because I let my ego get in the way. Because I'm like, no, I'm not doing dessert out of asparagus. I don't have to. I'm gonna nail the other 2 courses, and I'll have enough points to win, right? Try again, big guy.
Yeah. Hey, but you learn something, right? As long as we come out of there with learning a lesson or something. I'm surprised that concept. I don't know. Have you seen it somewhere else? I'm surprised this is not something that's popped up more. Like, I think it's just a cool concept to buy a ticket. Like, I've seen some wine stuff in Montreal where I guess 2 wine agencies will introduce wines, and there is like some kind of voting. I know Soif does a really cool one where Soif Bar à Vin in Gatineau, for those who don't know it, Véronique Rivet's wine bar. They basically, she's a super famous sommelier, so her team does a wine pairing with a dish, and then she does one, and then the guest votes. So I think the first time the team won, and the last time they did it, Vero won, but then you guys would do that against other restaurants. I think it's such a cool concept to see a community come together for charity. Like, I'm surprised it hasn't been done in other cities or by other people, but it's a really, really cool concept.
Yeah, we should try and bring that back, eh?
Yeah, now we're talking about it.
It would be fun. All new chefs, all new restaurants in the scene now. Yeah. It would be a lot of fun to do.
And even across cities, right? Like Montreal does Montréal en Lumière, and where they bring in chefs from all over the world to come and do like a special menu in restaurants here. But I can imagine, like, there's great restaurant scenes everywhere, right? Years ago, people would be like, when I told people I worked in Ottawa from Montreal, they're like, Ottawa? I'm like, man, you should see the restaurant scene here. Like, it's insane. Like, the quality of restaurants that are in Ottawa and Gatineau, and the same thing in Toronto. Like, there's like there's vibrant restaurant scenes everywhere, right?
Yes.
So it'd be interesting to see. That could be a pretty cool thing to. Maybe there's something to think about coming out of COVID, where we want to reignite and have the community get close together. That's a pretty good idea. Let's.
Yep.
We'll put that on the list with the documentaries with Netflix before.
Yeah,
we'll have a long list.
We need a new kitchen stadium. That's what we need. We need a kitchen stadium to bring all this together.
Yep.
Who has
one? Cool, huh?
Somebody's got one somewhere.
I'm sure there's a space that we could use somewhere. Let's throw it out there and start a conversation.
Yep. Awesome.
Very cool. For those of us who just joined us, still talking with Chef Norm Aitken from the Nordik Spa, and I guess we'll talk about the Nordik in a few minutes, as time is flying by, man. It's 45 minutes into this already. We had 15 minutes left before we talk about what you're currently working on and some of the other projects maybe we'll touch on with Paul as well. I want to have Paul on here sooner than later because I want to talk about kilns. But before the end of the Juniper era, we talked about Michael Smith before. Michael does a lot of stuff on Food Network. Eventually, you get a phone call to go to Toronto and do Chop Canada. Yeah. Now, I left it on my end with you, where we did a watch party at Juniper with again guests, friends. Like, it was an insane fun night. But from your end, tell us a little bit about that story. How did that come about? How was that for you to go through that? And I guess we'll let them know in the end how it turned out. But
well, it was I think it was all kind of like just spin-off from Dueling Chefs, and then I was asked to do this Chop Canada episode, and I've watched Chopped, like the American version, and very much so like what we were doing for Dueling Chefs. Yep. Black box. It was like, okay, here's your ingredients. You have a set amount of time. Knock it out. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'm into that, no problem. So I did a few. After I got the call saying that I'd be on the show, I did a few test runs just to kind of play with some timing, see how fast I can make mashed potato or something. And then we go into Toronto, stay at the hotel downtown there at the Royal York, wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, get in a van at 5 a.m. With all the contestants. And I'm like the super quiet type. I'm like, okay, it's 5 a.m. I'm not necessarily a morning guy. Got my very large grande coffee, and there's this banter in the van about, oh, this is gonna be so much fun. This is where I'm from. This is what I do. I own this, and I didn't say boo. I'm like, yeah, name's Norm from Ottawa. Kind of like, whatever. So I get on site. They suit us all up. They mic us. And I just go through my day. I really did not say much all day. I was on a mission. I'm like, I'm just going to come in here, knock it out, win, go home. That was my mission. The the filming, when I came around the corner, the first walk on the stage kind of thing, I look and I'm like, oh shit. Okay, so I got Michael Smith, been with him since he was early 20s and I was like a kid. I've got Suser Lee, which I've cooked for before, doing celebrity chef stuff at the NAC. Same with Vikram Ridge. Did some cooking with him at Canadian Celebrity Chefs. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm under the gun now. Like, oh, shit. So I go through first round. I get my ingredients. It's like dragon fruit and almond cookies and donair meat. And it was like, okay, you're getting rated on your menu as a whole. So it's 3 courses, app, main, dessert. And you have like 20 minutes for each course, 4 plates. I'm like, okay, dragon fruit was the main ingredient. And I'm like, they're all just going to cut this up and make a salad with it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go make a soup with it. Oh, shit. So as soon as I put it in the blender, I turn it on, and it's Instagram. The black seeds pureed into that. I'm like, shit, oh, shit, it better taste good. So anyway, I hit it with a bunch of basil and citric, lots of lemon, and like it tasted amazing. It did, but man, it looked bad. It was like some wacky gray baby food. Like it did not taste good. Yeah. Let me tell you, it did taste good. So anyway, I guess I won points on flavor, but not on presentation. Yeah. Main course was like red mullet. So fish and I get along fine. I'm an East Coaster, so I filleted it. Another guy left it whole. It came with like a dolce sweet syrup was another component, and fennel and cheese curds. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna fillet the fish. We'll cook it last minute. Cheese curds, I'll make like a cheese fritter. Okay. The sauce, the sweet sauce, I just hit it with white balsamic, make it kind of acidic, so I have vinaigrette. It all played out very well. I got beer for dessert course, was beer, pretzel bread, and frozen berries. So I'm like, okay, frozen berries, we'll make sorbet out of that. Pretzel bread and beer, okay, we're just going to make bread pudding out of that. Lo and behold, right? Yep. That was a good time. That was probably the hardest 16 hours I've ever worked.
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
For an hour of TV, but that's a lot of work behind it, right?
It was 16 hours by the end of the day. It was like almost 10 o'clock at night. I was like, I am done. I can't even put sentences together. I'm slurring. Yeah. I'm like slouching down in my seat. I wasn't making a whole lot of sense. Yeah, it was pretty funny. That was a good time. I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I was impressed by we've mentioned it a few times, but you're a chef. You have ego, like all men do, but like chefs are pretty known for having ego, but you've always been able to put it aside when it's time. You had probably, I don't remember, now you tell me, and I remember the episode as you're describing the dishes that's coming back to me, but you probably had the most to lose out of doing that, right? You're obviously a big fish in a small pond, not to be negative, but you're pretty well known in Ottawa, but you have a good name, you have a good reputation in Canada in general, but in the chef community, but you're a restaurant owner, you have your team, you have, a good following in Ottawa and respect from that community. You go there and you completely fail, you probably have more to lose than a lot of people go on there that are trying to make a name for themselves. You've made a name for yourself in Ottawa or East or wherever, and you've been all over for charity and stuff like that. Like you said, you'd cook for these guys at the NAC and celebrity chefs, so you have a good reputation. Pretty ballsy to go and do that. And again, you're a funny guy with a funny demeanor, and obviously TV, they like to edit for what they want to edit, but you came out very confident in that episode, slightly cocky. To not say very cocky, but slightly cocky. And I remember my girlfriend, Ev, was next to me that night. She's like, he's got to win. Like, he's been yapping all through this thing. He's got to win, right? You went all out. Like, I remember seeing in your face at the end of in the show, like, I could see something in your eye of like, oh, okay, I had to get this one.
Yeah, well, I saw it for the first time with you, right? Like that night, I never saw, and I went in and I didn't say boo, man. I didn't say boo. Until my exit interview, which is a 2-hour-long exit interview, and they ask you everything under the sun. Like, why'd you go back to the oven at that time? Why did you say that? Why did you do that? And I just won. So they took all my little snips out of my exit interview and plugged that right at the beginning of the show.
Beginning, but you knew you'd won at the end.
I'm like, these guys are geniuses.
Yeah.
They make you out to be anything they want. So if they need an underdog or an asshole, they can figure that one out with editing. Yeah,
Or especially with a long interview at the end, you can whip out anything out of there that you want. And I must say, in the contract, obviously, when you do these shows, they tell you cannot talk about the result until this airs because they want to make sure that people watch and they're curious. You were really good at that because I know at least one person, me, every day I went in and I was like, "Oh, Chef, come on, tell me. You can tell me. You can tell the others, but just tell me." And I bugged you every day. I'm like, "Come in the back. Come here. Here, I'll buy you a drink. Here, come tell me. So, what are you gonna do with the money? What are you gonna do with it?" And you were like, "You never sold it. Played it. Sold it. You were."
Nope.
I don't know what they said they'd do to you, but if you talked, but you never did talk.
Oh, you're under contract. You signed the dotted line. You're not going to talk about this. And I'm like, I am not talking about this.
I want to give a quick shout out. We get comments from, this is on social media, so we're on Facebook and YouTube Live. And my buddy Roy from Edmonton, kind of going through Neck of the Wood, wrote very interesting discussion, guys. So I want to give a shout out to Roy. Glad that you liked it. And if you ever come to Ottawa, you have to go see Norm the Nordik and have some of his food. Good to see you, Roy. Talking about the Nordik. So after the Juniper story, you couple of projects, consulting here and there. And tell me if I'm wrong. Martin was one of the co-owners or founders of the Nordik Spa in Chelsea, Quebec. Is a regular at Juniper. Loves what you, Paul, and you and the team do there. Eventually, they approach you to come and help them out, revamp what they're doing in food and beverage. Yeah. If I remember, that's supposed to be short term, and now we're 3-4 years into the story. So
4 years now.
4 years now.
Line and sinker is like Martin's like, just come and help me out, and then it was like a couple of months down the road, and it was like, yeah, okay, you wanted to come on full time. What a place! Like this is Nordik is just a big beast of wellness, if I can put it in that. Like it's so many moving parts, huge team. We have this location in Chelsea, Quebec. We have one in Winnipeg. We're opening one in Whitby in Toronto, hopefully in May. Everything is on schedule as we speak. There was definitely a little bit of construction delay there with COVID. But the Toronto spa is going to be unreal. It's epic.
I saw something pass by on your Facebook last week about some plans are getting done there, right? So moving along.
I'm on final review. I think I'm on review or revision 16 of the kitchen. Working with Scott from Russell Hendricks, which is a huge help for me. Kind of piecing the kitchens together and getting the experiences together and figuring out menus. Going to have to start hiring a team here soon. So they'll be up here in Chelsea with us for a bit, kind of training with us. We have an absolute amazing team. We did a great job between Paul and I on kind of spinning the food and beverage department into a culture. So we definitely have that going now, and full speed ahead. Like we have a lot going on at Nordik. There's a lot. I think
you guys did something pretty amazing, right? The Martin and the team, they built. I mean, for those who don't know, because I mean, this could be watched, anywhere. Nordik is the largest spa in North America, as far as I know, right? Unless you get something bigger got built since then, but it started and then it grew into something else, and Pano and Panorama and the pool and this and that. It is a huge business. It is extremely popular. It is perfectly located, 15 minutes from Ottawa. So you have all the Ottawa market that can go there. The same thing with the Outaouais region. It is a gorgeous spot in Chelsea, Quebec. I mean, it's been around for 15, 20 years now. It's been there for a long time, right? 15 years, I think?
15 or 16 years now.
They've built something outstanding. I had heard, obviously, not necessarily restaurant people behind the project, people that like it but that are not from there. I have friends who worked there for years before you and Paul showed up. They tried many things. And when I found that you guys were going to work on the food and beverage there, I was like, okay, finally they have the right team. And what you guys have done has been pretty amazing, right? I mean, sales wise, but also project wise. Like you guys have tried. Like, you want to share with us some of the stuff you guys brought in the last 4 years from the beer garden to, you were telling me some stuff you've tried this summer. You guys are really having, basically, there was always a central restaurant Eventually, they opened up a bar where you could have like some small plates, but you guys went and pushed that and have different concepts all over the site. It's a pretty big site as well. But share with us if you want some of the cool stuff you guys have done.
So we put in a beer garden that's obviously, there's a lot of beers on tap. And then we started putting together a small kitchen up there just to do, in the wintertime, there's chili and grilled cheese. And really, we are a spa, but people are still coming to kind of experience the spa in their own way. So, we have everybody from, the avid spa goers that want quiet and leave me alone. And then we have the other ones that are more groups and, they want to go and have beer and they want to hang out in the pools and it's more of a social setting. So we started doing our food and beverage direction was more, okay, let's isolate this into experiences. So beer garden was one of them. Cool food, simple, like pork dumplings and grilled cheese. And this summer I just did a tomato sandwich, which was awesome, with the help of Chef Matt Burns, which is on site. Then we did the shack. We had this area right by the Pano pool that was like, okay, well, it's not really used in the summertime because it's the winter relaxation area. So let's put in a grill and we'll do tacos and cheeseburgers and that sort of thing. This summer I put a wood-burning pizza oven on site just to try it out and see what happens. Oh yeah, that was a hit.
Was that at the shack?
Yeah, it was right next to the shack.
I can only imagine if I've been to the Nordik many times. If I could get like wood oven pizza,
right?
Go to that before a charcuterie plate.
Yep, damn right.
Yeah,
that was definitely a winner. And then obviously Resto is just reopened. We opened that mid-September. With this whole COVID thing, talk about pivoting. Talk about trying to think outside the box a little bit and to accommodate, right? That was definitely a struggle. I know there's a lot of chefs out there that are still scratching their heads and like, how the hell do we do this? Nordik has definitely provided us with options just because we are outside and we are, it's all open. So we've been having a lot of fun with that. Might have to find a permanent situation for our pizza oven. So that's what I'm working on now to see if we can implement it into the beer garden as a whole addition to that experience. So Nordik definitely gives us the opportunity to play around in the food and beverage department. That's for sure.
Sure.
But it all comes down to guests. It's all about feedback. Good or bad, right? So that's what I was doing before the interview, was reading commentary, right? About everything that's coming back. And it's like, we need to pivot. We need to change, so.
Well, I think that's the amazing thing with you and Paul. You're super creative, but you're also amazing at execution. So you've been able to come and try new things, but react if they don't work. A lot of times people fall in love with their idea, and when it doesn't work, they double down because they don't want to lose face instead of saying, no, we're just trying to find what works, what our guests want, and make sure we give them a better experience. And that for you guys is translated into driving a lot of sales for the spa, but also driving a better experience for the guests. Because last time I was there, I mean, obviously moved back from the Outaouais years ago to Montreal, but I haven't been in a while. But I can only imagine, because I've seen it now, but I would have been a lot more attracted to the beer garden or the shack than I was to the bar. The bar was nice and some people loved that experience, but I'm much more of that type of experience. And you have such a variety of guests on site that I think you guys had, they gave you the ability to try things, but you had the talent and experience to pull back when something doesn't work, right? Just trying to find home runs and make sure that we find the right things, because it's an experience, it's an expensive experience to go to any spa. And especially if you want to dine there or enjoy some stuff. So I was pretty impressed when I got to visit the last time and see the shack, the beer garden, the different things you guys have done. I think it's pretty amazing. And I mean, I think it shows the team that you guys have built and moving forward. And now, Thermia in Winnipeg, and you were talking about Whitby coming, and I think it's pretty public because I've seen it that Nordik has the ambition of opening something like 10 spas over the next 10 years or something like that.
Yeah, we've got Calgary slated. Calgary slated, and then Edmonton has been slated. Not a whole lot on my end for that. I haven't seen plans yet, so nothing involved with that as of yet. We're all focused on Toronto right now. Let's get this thing done and launched. It's been in the works for a long time. There's a lot to it. It's not an easy feat, let me tell you. No, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of moving parts.
Even though you've done it twice already, doesn't make the third one or the fourth one or the fifth one easier, right?
No, it's all a different beast. Yep, big time.
Beautiful. Been talking for an hour here. I told you I wouldn't keep you too long.
But you were right. It does go by pretty quick.
I told you we'd have to do more than one because we'd run out of time before we get to the end of this. You asked me in prep to this, if I had a list of questions or stuff, and I basically said, this is my list of questions for you because I know this is gonna go in different directions. It's gonna work well. So I want to thank you for coming and doing this. I want to thank you publicly. You were the first persons I went to when we started building Piecemeal. Yeah. I don't really talk about Piecemeal on Table 21. Maybe I'll have you on to give us some feedback, on your experience with that. But thank you you've put it to the test. You guys are working hard in it. We've learned a lot from your feedback and some of the stuff that you'd like to see, but getting the positive, like as much as there's things like in anything that you need to see and you need to use on a daily basis, getting the positive feedback from you and hearing you guys say, man, would you want to go back to what we had before? No, this is simpler. Like it's been invaluable to have your feedback and your entire team behind us. So I'm looking forward to maybe doing one where you tell us about your side. I talk about Piecemeal a lot online, but to have your view of how that's come into your life and some of the good stuff that it's done. And but yeah, thanks for your support in that.
You and I could easily spend an hour on chatting food cost. Let me tell you, you and I could easily spend an hour talking about that. Yep.
Yeah. I may call you upon that. As I was gonna say, as your schedule gets a little mellower, but it's always insane, right? So
I think it's gonna.
I think this was enjoyable. We had a bunch of people. We got some thumbs up and some likes and some stuff and some comments from a few people. So thanks for coming on. And I want to wish you, hopefully you guys stay out of the red zone around where you guys are at.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Keep doing what we're doing.
Knock on wood.
Yep.
Chef Norm, always a pleasure. Everybody, we'll see you. I don't know who's coming on next, but we'll do that. We'll probably have Norm come back down the line at some point. Thanks for watching us. Thanks,
Cheers.
Chef.
Thanks. Cheers.
Bye.